Well, hello, I'm Rob Ferguson, founder of Ferguson Alliance. Today, we're going to talk about a word, a topic, a subject that most of our clients really shudder when we bring it up: governance, family business governance. Our clients think about that as the boogeyman. They sometimes even think that we're going to depersonalize their family business. We're going to harm it in some sort of way when we start bringing in or introducing best practices around business governance. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about that, and hopefully I can dispel some of those myths. If you're listening to this webinar, it means you have an interest in family business governance. And I'm actually going to present to you that with good family business practice, you will increase harmony in your family business, you will increase alignment with the direction of your business, and you will increase the overall value and ultimate prosperity of your family business. Thanks for joining. So our agenda for this webinar is I'm going to give you a brief overview of the business life cycle. I'm going to talk about the power of structure, or maybe even the power of no structure. Some of the best practices inside of governance. We're going to talk about alignment and communication inside of a family business, and potentially some next steps. So I want to start off with the business life cycle. Do you realize that in the 50s, the average life cycle for a business in the United States was slightly more than 60 years? Seems pretty good. Today, that measurement has declined significantly. Now, today we measure the life cycle of a public company, or those on the S&P 500 to be specific. They're at 15 years is the average life cycle. 60 years to 15. That's quite a decline. For a family business, the average is 24 years. Certainly a decade better, more than a decade better than the S&P 500, but nowhere near to where it used to be. So the mission that we have here at Ferguson Alliance is to help as many family businesses as we can to extend their life cycle and hopefully get it back to something greater than 60 years. We do that by creating or helping create prosperity for our family businesses, but significant prosperity that is multi-generational. Now, when we talk about prosperity with people, clients, outside stakeholders, everybody has a different definition. So we just went to the dictionary, looked it up, and there's the definition. It's really a measure of financial success or good fortune, flourishing, successful. Every client that we work with has a very different meaning. Many times it's very much oriented around their family interests with philanthropy. Whatever it is, it really needs to be more than just the dollar bill, don't you think? It really should be the impact that we make on all the people that we touch in our family business. At least that's where we come from. Because we know that as family businesses prosper, everybody's going to win. Not just the family, but the employees, the suppliers, the community that we operate in, all the philanthropic efforts that the family and the business joins together. Everybody wins. The life cycle of a family business is very predictable. And in this particular graphic, I'm demonstrating it similar to a tree, where a business starts off as a small seedling in its infancy years, and then hopefully eventually grows to a youthful sapling, and then finds its way to prime, being a healthy tree, being a healthy business, both financially and non-financially. We actually define prime as that ideal state of finding balance between structure and flexibility. More on that in a different webinar. Over the years, though, many businesses reach this peak called middle age. And that's where things are going really, really well. In fact, maybe so well, complacency sets in, and then we're on the backside of the curve, and we enter into the senior years, the ultimate twilight. And if we don't intervene and do something about it, yes, we can have the death of a company And that's exactly what's been happening since the 1950s. That's why business life cycle is only 24 years for a family business and an average of 15 for S&P 500. So where we focus is right here in the prosperity zone. We help our clients get there from a youthful stage to the prime, or we help them reinvent themselves in the middle age stage and get back to prime. There's a lot of barriers to prosperity, but through our surveys, the two dominant barriers is that leadership doesn't have a vision and there's a lack of alignment and low trust in an organization. And that's what prevents many family businesses reaching that zone of prime or prosperity. You can really do a quick and easy test. Listen to the people in your organization. And if you're getting a lot of questions around what are we doing? That means you haven't answered the why question. Why are you being? So the way we go about this is we create a house of prosperity with our clients. And that house of prosperity is built on the family legacy and the inertia of growing the value of that business, which is stood up by three pillars of shared vision, organizational strength, and system for managing. These three pillars are built on the foundation of the family values being integrated into the business culture. We actually think that's the competitive weapon of every single family business, is that the family values have been incorporated into that business culture. Now, there's 9 elements in these three pillars. We've done webinars in each of them. Today, we're going to be talking about the last element in the system for managing pillar, governance. So the power of structure, that's what governance really is. It's putting in business structure in place so the family can have the proper oversight as to how it's behaving, how it's growing, how it's handling difficult decisions, how it's managing upsets. That's what governance is all about. So I put this table together just to help demonstrate what the structure looks like from a meeting perspective. And these meetings happen on a regular, routine basis. Now, not every family business is going to set up their governance structure with all of these meetings. What I'm illustrating here is for a large family business that probably has some complexity to it and probably has several generations, maybe 3 or 4. So the way it works is there's a board of directors, and that board of directors is made up of some family members, not all family members, but some qualified family members and qualified independents. More on that later in this presentation. The sole purpose of this board is to create value for the shareholders. The board of directors is hired by the shareholders, and the board's job is to oversee the effectiveness of the business and the effectiveness of management executing against the strategic plans. Typically, these meetings are happening on a quarterly basis. Now, there's shareholder meetings, and these are meetings for voting shareholders. In some of our clients' businesses, they have voting shares and non-voting shares. So I'm really referring to just the voting shareholders. And this happens once a year, and this is where management and the board of directors is informing the shareholders on the state of the business, future direction that the business is going. This is a time of when they appoint or reappoint new board members. They set up various committees, and this happens on an annual basis. Now, in a family business, now those two meetings are very similar in non-family businesses. Where it gets different in the family business is we add a couple others. So we're going to call this other one the family council. This also typically happens on an annual basis. And many times it's tied with a kind of an annual family retreat. We see these happening, in the summertime, if the family likes summer type activities, or in the wintertime, if they like winter activities, or sometimes they vary. So we'll see family vacations that might be multiple days or weeks, but they always carve out a day or a half day or even a few hours for their family council meeting. Now, this is all shareholders are represented and non-shareholders at the family council meeting. And it's a way for the patriarch of the family to be able to deliver state of the family, educate the broader group on the business, maybe their charitable events that they've been participating in. A lot of times we do next generation training here, teach the younger generation the responsibilities of becoming a family shareholder. So again, it's a non-business, somewhat business oriented meeting on the business of the family. And it's on an annual basis. And then we do have special family meetings, and sometimes, particularly in multi-generational families, you're going to have multiple branches or heads of families, 3 or 4 branches of the family. Maybe there's a life event that's occurred, or a particular emergency, or some other event that's going on in the family that a meeting needs to be called, and there'll be a special meeting. So this type of structure in meetings really does begin the whole practice of governing the business with the family. In most businesses, the organization is very hierarchical. You have the CEO, you have the management team, the leadership team, and then the employees. In a family business structure, you have the interesting dynamic where you have the owners, and then you have the board and the CEO. Now, a lot of times in the first or second generation of family business, the CEO is the owner, is the shareholder, or it could be the CEO has 2 brothers that are shareholders with him. But as that business grows, as its prosperity begins to expand across multiple generations, it becomes more complex, and it becomes a necessary need to bring in a board of governors, so to speak, that are qualified to help, again, the family shareholders oversee their holdings and make sure that the business is behaving the way they intended it. It's upholding the family brand, and it's meeting the strategic intents that the family has always desired. It does put the CEO right in this target. So the CEO has the responsibility to be able to communicate the owner's desires, the board's requirements to the managers and employees. And it's important that the employees and managers deliver on that. And the CEO is able to communicate how those managers and employees are delivering on the owner's expectations. So this ownership structure is part of the governance. And a lot of times when we introduce family business governance, the owners don't understand that they are not giving up their power by hiring a board of directors and putting certain things to vote, because ultimately the owners are in charge of the board of directors. They hire the board. So that's why we call that the hidden power of the owners. Now, every family member has different qualifications, different tools, different networks and resources. So it's important, particularly as the family grows and you have multiple generations, to use good discernment on who should and should not be on your board of directors from a family perspective. No different than you would for an independent and non-family member. You need to scrutinize or vet the family directors the same level you would an independent. We have some family businesses that just put anybody and everybody on the board, no matter what their age is. Well, if they're 18 years, they get to be 18 years of age, they're on the board of directors. Well, I'm not really sure that 18-year-old is qualified to make the types of decisions that come to the board meeting. But we'll talk about that in another webinar. So I've characterized 4 groups of what we normally see are the assets that these family members bring to the board. One group is called shareholder capital. In other words, this might be somebody that is a high net worth individual. Maybe they created their wealth outside of the family business. Perhaps they are in the financial industry and have a lot of connections to capital, but they can bring in new financial resources, or they might have particular expertise in M&A transactions. They're really good, perhaps in risk management. We see family members who have careers in banking or investment banking or risk management typically fall in this category, and they're really good at oversight on the family board. Then you have some family members, they just know everybody in town. They're great networkers. They can introduce you to anybody you'd want to know. But we see these family members as really great catalysts and real value to be on the board. They might have grown up in the family business and have connections in the industry that family business is in. They're a good resource for talent potentially, or they know other centers of influence that can come in and help that family business. And then we have the experts, the actual family member that's leading or managing the business, and they should be in there, and their role is the leadership, and they've been trained or they're working in the business on a regular daily basis. And then you have the family members they just have a really strong personal network. Maybe they're very socially connected. They're involved in a lot of philanthropy. Well, those become the ambassadors of the business. And they're really good to have in place because they're probably going to know folks that are in maybe government, whether that's local government or state or federal government. They may have some really good commercial relationships with other businesses that can help that family business out. But the point of all of this is, don't just put your family members on the board of directors because they turned 18 years of age. Have a strategic reason, understand what their role is, and make sure that they're contributing to that family business. Now, the power of structure can also destroy. And unfortunately, that is one of the reasons why we're seeing the life cycle of a family business decline to 24 years. These are some recent statistics that only 40% of family-owned businesses make it through the end of the second generation. That's staggering. Only 12% can make it to the third generation, and 3% through the fourth. It's less than 1% can actually make it to the fifth. I mean, this is I think it's a real world problem that affects our economy. It affects our country's innovation. It affects our philanthropy if we don't change these statistics. And that's why I think family business governance is so important for your business and every family business that we talk to. So these family businesses, I call them the 5 rights of owners in a family business. And I put this slide in here to help dispel this myth that for some reason, when you put in governance practices and perhaps even bring in independent directors, that you're losing your rights. Well, that's not the case at all. I mean, it's your responsibility as a family business owner to design the type of governance structure that you want to have and put in place. Yeah, you're the ones who are making those decisions. You are the ones who set the strategy on how you're going to go about creating value. You set up the communication structures so there will remain trust, not fear. And it's your responsibility as the owner of the business to set up your succession plan for the next generation and those even further beyond you. So I call them the 5 rights of family owners. It's really kind of your mandates of what a family owner should be working on. So the structure of governance doesn't destroy your business, but it builds it and sustains it. All right, well, let's dig a little deeper in governance structure. So there's various types of family businesses in how they structure themselves. And so this little matrix here, as you can see on the y-axis, we have it's an inclusive ownership or exclusive ownership. In other words, there's multiple owners or just one owner, or to a small holding of owners. And then decision-making control. The decisions are either made in a unified manner or it's shared decision-making. So you can look at as a sole owner. It's a single family member that has all the ownership. We have several clients like that. They make all the decisions. They own them. They don't ask some other family member to help them with those decisions, or they don't have the responsibility to. And the ownership is concentrated with one owner. Now, what we see over time is as the business grows or as it matures through its life cycle, this family distribution of ownership and decision making changes. And so a lot of times we'll see a sole owner practice move to a partnership. And now you have multiple partners and it requires shared decision making, but still the ownership's concentrated with maybe just two individuals or three. We'll also see it go from a sole owner to concentrated. And so what it means is that there's still just maybe three shareholders in the family business, but there is a subset of shareholders. Maybe they have voting rights and some do not. And then it can also go to the distributed side where there's a lot of shareholders that are making decisions and the ownership is spread over numerous owners. So just for your interest, I get asked this question. You can see the statistics here that 36%, the majority of family businesses are in that upper right-hand quadrant, distributed. And then the next one is concentrated, that's 27%. And it's only 13% are as sole owners. So kind of an interesting mix. And then 24% is partnerships. So think about governance again as your structure and your framework. And going on the theme of the House of Prosperity, we decided to show you the blueprint of what that House of Prosperity looks with the various rooms inside of it. And because these rooms will help you with your decision making and your communication structure. So in this example, the big room you can see is the family room. Well, this is the family, it's everybody. It's spouses, next generation, your descendants, it's the family. And then the next room that we built is the owner room. These are all the owners, the trustees, and the beneficiaries. Then we have the board room that is with the directors and advisors. Then we have the management room where the executive leadership team is, the management team, and the employees. Now we put doors into these rooms. And this is just a model or an example. Each family will design their rooms the way that works best for them, and the doors the way it works best for them. So here we have an open door policy from the family room to the owner room. You can see that it's open door. You can see that the owner room has an open door policy into the boardroom. But we do have kind of a door that opens and closes between the family room and the boardroom. So there's some structure there of how the family will engage with the board of directors. Now we do notice that we have a closed door between the family room and the management room. In other words, the family is going to have to go through the owner room or through the board room to be able to engage with the management room. So again, this is an example. It's not a best practice, but the best practice is be really clear on what your decision-making framework is going to be. How are you going to integrate the rooms? How are you going to get the doors to open and close between communication? Now, there's different types of family boards, and we believe that boards evolve over time and as that life cycle, as the family business moves through its life cycle. So I've kind of put it here the way we see boards start, particularly early on in startups. There's this informal advisory board. A lot of startups have this. These typically are non-paid positions. This is maybe the inventor or the entrepreneur is just finding subject matter experts to help them do financial planning or help them do proof of concepts. These are very easy to implement, very flexible. There's really no liability at all from the participants on this informal advisory board. As the family business moves up the continuum with the life cycle and that seedling becomes a sapling, you start introducing more structure into the business. So this is a great time to formalize your advisory board. And this is where you really want to bring in, strong subject matter experts in the areas that you need it. Maybe it's finance, it could be marketing, could be technology, whatever function or characteristic that you're needing from an operations perspective or a strategic perspective. That's what you want to fill in as your independence. And these advisory boards, they do meet regularly. There's no fiduciary responsibility here. There's no legal authority, but really good advisory boards do treat it as a fiduciary. They treat their role as important and as a contributor. And then you do have the fiduciary board, and this is where they are responsible. They have duties that they must fulfill. They do provide oversight. They help the leadership team with some of the most challenging and difficult decisions. They do have a legal responsibility to make decisions on the best interest of the shareholders. And then a lot of times we'll see it's very natural to kind of see some sort of a hybrid between advisory role and fiduciary role. Now, there was some research recently done, and it was in a communication that I read earlier this year, that the more independence on a family board, the more effective that board was. So the first graph, family-only board, only had a 50% rating of effectiveness. If the board had two or more independents, but that the independents were still a minority, it moved all the way up to an 83% effectiveness. Now, interestingly, if the board was made up majority independents, it had a 96% vote or rating of effectiveness. I thought this was pretty staggering. And it does make sense, doesn't it? Because if it's just your family on that family board, making strategic decisions, financial decisions, governance decisions, do we sometimes just create an echo chamber, only listening to the voices that we've listened to our entire lives, reacting to those voices based upon our history with those family members our entire lives? Doesn't it make sense to bring in other outside subject matter experts, at least to break the echo chamber, to give different perspectives, new ideas, new methodologies, new points of views, to create some safe area for debate? I do think the statistics are true here, that you can double the effectiveness of your family board with independence, with the right qualified independence. So the last part of governance, obviously, are the agreements. There's two types of agreements that we put in place with family businesses. We have the family constitution. This is something that I think is really important, and it it complements the legal documents that are required to set up a company in this country. So it's complementary. But what it really does is it helps explain the legacy of the business. It helps provide alignment to the overall vision of the business. It highlights the important values and ethics that the family has for the business. It provides a sense of responsibility for the family to uphold the brand. So we're going to do another webinar on the family constitution. This is just a really important document for the family business governance. I think it's just as important as your shareholder agreements, your bylaws, and any other formation documents that you legally are required to set up your family business. So governance is all about alignment, and the more alignment you can have in your business, the more value you're going to create. We see family businesses always in this dilemma. We call it the priority triangle. And there's always trade-offs between growth, control, and liquidity of that family business. Most families have to pick two at the cost of one. So perhaps you're going to choose growth and control. Those are your two most important goals. So that means you're willing to not have enough liquidity in order to support the growth of your family business, but you don't want to give up the control. There may be another family that decides, you know what, what's most important to me is having liquidity and control. And so we're okay with not growing the business. We want to make sure we're monetizing our distributions at the maximum level we can every year. And we don't want to sell any shares of our business. And then you have some families that decide, you know, we want to grow. That's important to us. And we want to have liquidity as well. So it's okay for us to sell some shares. It's okay to bring in some other shareholders to help us meet those objectives. The point of me bringing this up is to understand there's trade-offs, but to understand this is the conversation that occurs in these family board meetings to help set the direction and the strategy for management to execute against. Usually what happens is once that gets determined, we have to identify, well, how's this business going to make an impact? What is its overall answer to why do we exist? What's our purpose? Well, we create this statement of direction that it consists of that purpose statement, the vision and the mission, the strategic intents and goals that business has. This statement of direction starts with the board of directors and the shareholders and trickles down to management and to the employees. And you keep the organization aligned to that. The last part of governance is good communication. And good communication means you're going to continue to increase the trust in your company. So it goes without saying, the more you communicate, the more you're transparent, the higher accountability you have in the organization with your management team, and the higher level of trust you'll build between management and the shareholders. As that business is growing, it's going to be more important to have different modes of communication. It's written communication, verbal communication, walking around communication. So you really want to make sure you're doing communication in a structured, designed way. I know many of our clients want their privacy. They don't want their leadership team to know their profitability of their company. It's hard for me to understand. Now, I did not come from a family business environment. I grew up in more of a public company institutional for the first 24 years of my career. It wasn't until I spent 5 years inside of a large family business that I understand this nuance between privacy and transparency. One particular client of ours never shared with the president of their company or the leadership team the profitability of the business, yet they expected the management team to increase profits year over year. Well, how can you increase something you don't know where it is? And then to make things even worse, the family would give out discretionary bonuses based on the profitability improvement of that business. But there was no connection to the leadership team between profits and bonus. It just became a discretionary Christmas bonus. Some years they had it, some years they didn't, some years it was a little better than other years. Once this family business started communicating profitability, it opened up a whole new world. Management all of a sudden is now building the budget. Yes, this was a large business that didn't have budgets. Management's controlling their expenses. Management's coming up with new and better ways to sell higher value products. It's an empowering thing. So I get the idea about privacy and transparency. Your leadership team can keep your matters private, but if your leadership team doesn't know where you're headed and how they're doing, they're going to have a really difficult time executing against your strategy. Confidentially, confidence is important. Confidentiality is important. And I think with that said, it's how you hire, right? You want to hire people that you know you can trust to keep the information confidential. So here is an approach to building a communication plan. We did this for one of our other clients. We identified, well, what's the list of information that we need to share from a governance perspective. We did this from a governing side. And we listed the stakeholders as owners, the next generation, spouses, employees in the community. And then we just went down this matrix and made decisions on, which of these topics are we going to have open communication? Which of the topics are going to be, we called it metered communication, but maybe it's not full disclosure, or maybe it's just sequence communication. And then we identified where we're going to have no communication of those particular topics. As we built this really increased the awareness for the shareholders of the importance of having a communication plan and maintaining confidentiality in their communications. All right, well, so I've kind of given you a high level view of why I believe family business governance is not a bad word. It's a good word. I do believe that putting the right structure in place is going to help better define roles and responsibilities and authorities between the family members and the business. It'll help you with your decision making. Being transparent is going to empower the management team. It will increase the level of trust between management and family members. I do believe that having good governance practices, such as regular meetings, such as the ones that I outlined, will facilitate conflict resolution. You can actually get ahead of potential conflicts because you're creating opportunities to talk about issues that have different perspectives. It does require good governance, succession planning. It's got to be built in there into it. It's very important for the board of directors to oversee and manage your succession planning. And ultimately, that governance is going to add to not just your house of prosperity, but having it become sustainable and multi-generational prosperity. So if you're interested in learning more about family business governance, give us a call. If you've made up your mind that this is something that you want to start off with, we typically will start with forming an advisory board. But whatever board you need some help with, we can do that. We can also come in, if you've got a board already established, we can help do board assessments and effectiveness surveys, not only on the individual directors, but on the board as a unit. We can also come in and help facilitate board meetings. We also serve as independent board members. So there's various ways you can engage with us. on our governance services. And we'd be very happy to help you. This is our contact information. You can give us a call at any time, drop us an email, go to our resource page on our website. We have a plethora of information. We have other videos that are recorded webinars. We have numerous blogs that I think you'll find very relevant to your family business, and we have recordings of numerous podcasts that we've participated in. Sign up for our future webinars and sign up for our weekly blogs. Love to engage with you. Thanks very much for listening and have a great day.